in various ways. I've seen a big change from the beginning till now, you know.
What are some of the CDs that you have made so far?
Well, the most recent one which has taken off is called American Raga. Raga is a form of Indian music. There are 75,000 ragas established in India. EMI, the big company in India.
Yes, it is, yeah.
I was lucky enough to be picked up by them. And I just got my royalty statement saying it's selling all over India. So it's selling all over the world, 120 countries.
Wonderful.
But in India, it's a special thing because I grew up reading those newspapers which now have reviewed me. You know, so it's so strange. It's like deja vu.
So what do? Do you travel, or
yes,
do you accompany musicians?
All the time.
Give me some names, some places that you've been.
I have agents all over the world. I have 4 agents. To be a musician, you have to wear like 20 different hats because you have to take care of the business. You have to take care, sort of like running a great TV studio. All the great Indian sitarists come, and they need accompanists who are already here. If they're not rich enough to bring their own, or if they get the visas to come to the States, Devi Prasad Chatterjee, Shugato Nag, you know, there are many. Ravi Shankar ji started the whole thing.
That's right.
And the Beatles were this great group in the West which told their vast audience, listen to this kind of music. And so during the 60s, Ravi Shankar ji began this whole thing. He's our God, you know. And in tabla we have Zakir ji, and we have many.
Do you also accompany Western musicians?
Yes. Yo-Yo Ma, who's now playing with a regular tabla player. I've accompanied a few in the West, horn players, Carl Grubbs. There are quite a few. But what I've noticed is, in the beginning, they had no concept of Indian music. So we never had a language a common ground that we could feed off from and work together. But nowadays, the serious ones have been studying. In India, when I was growing up, I would also play in music studios for movie music. There would be guitarists, there would be keyboard players, there would be Indian musicians. All of them were Indian, but they all knew the West as well. And I missed that in the beginning here, that dialogue. You know, but now, gradually, with John McLaughlin in the West playing his guitar, and he more or less lives in India now. So.
Now, Western musicians, they write music first before they play it. So they'll have to incorporate you at the writing level.
That's right.
Where is that?
That's why I went to college. Because I studied writing and I studied orchestration. So I write out my pieces because they don't usually know how to improvise in the Indian way, because that takes 40 years of training to even understand the language of the raga. So it's much easier if they can read what is going on, and then gradually, like any process, they get into it and they realize how big and beautiful the tradition is.
What is the difference between drums that we play and tabla that you play? And what are the sounds, and how does that work?
Well, being in the West, going to college at William & Mary, what it taught me was Western forms of percussion, not the Indian theoretical part, which is, as I said, we have a language and there are millions of compositions, but exploring the tones of it and exploring the Indian drum in another way, where I would play with different instruments which have totally different palette of sounds. And so I would need to tune the tablas differently. I would explore what the limits of the sounds were through the education which I got in the West in percussion.
So when the Western musicians call you and they say, okay, this is what we have written, how can you improve upon it, or can you deliver on this? How do you do that? How do you convince them, instead of using the drums, use tabla?
Because it's very tuned. So automatically tabla is like half a melodic instrument and half a drum. And so they love that combination. And that's why come to me anyway.
Now tell me, this week, where are you performing?
I'll be playing with my family group called Ganga, and we do folk music and dance of Bengal, very ethnic kind of music. We're playing for the Virginia Park Authority, and it's at Mason District Park Amphitheater, and it's on the 10th of July at 7:30 p.m. And it's free, folks, so come.
There are a lot of Bengali weddings in this town. Do you play weddings?
Yes. I never say no to any show. I can't afford to. so it's always, as long as I'm free. Weddings come lower in the totem pole than concerts. Recently we've been doing college tours where it's during the week.
Well, if you're like me and you want to learn how to play tabla, of course you teach.
Yes.
Tell me your program of teaching.
I give private lessons. And some of them are in group form, or some of them are individual for the higher students, the ones who've learned something. And usually I teach at home. I have a house in Falls Church. And all the information can be gotten at my website, brotoroy.com.
Wonderful. I want to congratulate you for you taught me today more about music, more about tabla than I knew before.
Thank you very much for having me. We've grown up with Darshan, and it's my favorite program.
My God, you kept the best thing for the last.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In conversation